man. Legacy Lounge. Sometimes people want to talk.
We have an incredible guest here.
What's up, brother?
The definition of the Legacy Lounge is stuff that he's putting together. He's a great community leader. His story is amazing.
Legacy Lounge, episode 14. Here with Clay Nutting, Brad Cecchi. Thanks for joining us, guys.
Of course, good to be
Absolutely.
here.
On site at the Staple
Man.
over in East Sac. Canon. I'm excited to be here, man.
Usually when we're in this room, we have a bunch of amazing dishes and a lot of good wine and champagne. So this is special for us to be here at, hands down, one of our favorite places in all of Sacramento.
Love it. Thank you.
Going to do a deep dive. Obviously, Clay, you and I are buddies. You're my uncle, my cousin. I've embarrassed myself coming here. We won't get into that, but
We will.
we will. Okay.
Why are we not? What you mean?
We have some fairly inappropriate stories of how I've put my foot
we'll
in my
keep it
mouth.
PG.
Yeah, we'll keep it PG.
All right.
Let's just say that my jokes don't always hit. Let's just leave it at we'll just leave it at that. But
Before these
cheers.
Let's just say
Start?
there's
Cheers,
quite a
guys.
few notes under his name in the reservation
Notes
book.
under
yeah.
his name, famous ones. That's great.
Why don't you tell everybody what we're drinking, Clay?
Yeah, so this is Presqu'île, Pinot Noir. One of our buddies actually worked there for a little bit. Adam Saki, who makes Perch wine, and turned me on to Presqu'île. And I just, Santa Maria Valley and delicious Pinot Noir. So, yeah.
Yeah, you're right.
Why leave it in the, with the cap on and
Yes.
let's pop it open.
Yes. Love it.
The wine here is absolutely slapping. Kendra and I, it was funny because like 2 weeks ago we went out and we went to a function for my mom, and afterwards we wanted to go out, but we don't really like going out to bars, and we're like, let's see what Clay's up to. And so you were here. I'm like, how late can we show up? And you're like, well, we close at 9. So anyways, we showed up, brought a bottle of wine, purchased a couple more bottles of wine, had a couple small bites. That's like one of my favorite things, is to sit at the bar here and indulge in the goodness.
The food is absolutely incredible here, man. Like, just everything. We keep trying everything that we can. We're here. We just tore it up 2 Fridays ago I was out here with good friends, Ben Alderman and Stephanie Alderman. We had a blast. And gosh, I'm just blown away every time I leave here. So just kudos to you guys, man. It's such a great experience. And like I said, it's the staple out here, man.
So yeah, I know obviously a lot about your backstory, Clay. I'm sure I'm gonna hear some stuff I haven't heard. I don't really know much about you, Brad. So I'm really looking forward to hearing about your story. So I want to kick it off there. First of all, how did you guys meet? And tell me a little bit about your background, where you're from, and how you got involved into being a chef and ultimately a restaurateur.
Yeah. So Clay and I met, must have been probably about 2013 or so. He was at LowBrau.
Happy 10-year anniversary.
Thanks. He was still at LowBrau, and they were getting ready to open Block Butcher Bar, and I was working at Grange. I was the chef de cuisine there, and I had kind of carved out some space in the market as being really good at making like cured meats and charcuterie and butchering and stuff like that. And so they were open Block Butcher Bar, and he reached out to see if I was interested in the job, but I had been kind of called up to the big leagues. I got a executive chef job open in the Westin in downtown Cleveland, Ohio. So I moved out to the Mistake on the Lake.
Now, were you married at this time?
I was not quite engaged, almost.
No kids at the time?
No kids.
Okay, so perfect opportunity to move to one of the most beautiful places in America.
Exactly. Exactly. In the winter. And so we
Can I
moved.
forget, were you a Browns fan before?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, yeah,
So
okay.
it's just a coincidence.
I mean, it was actually like more motivating to take
Sure.
the job
Yeah,
because
yeah.
I was a Browns
Got
fan.
it.
Wait, is that? Please tell me that's a joke. You are
I'm
a
a
Browns
Browns
fan?
fan, yeah.
Oh, this
Well, I
is
mean,
real.
Why do
It is
people
a
say
joke.
that or tell me that's a joke? Like,
but it is also true.
I mean, the Patriots are awesome.
I mean, we've had our run.
For the first time in 30 years, we can now talk shit about the Patriots.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's a
And
good
it's
thing.
fun,
Yeah,
and I
it
take
hurts.
all the opportunity that I can to do so. So I moved out to Cleveland, and I didn't spend a long time out there. I was on part of the opening team, so a lot of that time was not in operations. We were building the hotel and doing all that. So did that, got the hotel opened, was there a little over a year, and then got hauled back to opportunity to work at Solage in Calistoga, Michelin Star restaurant, 5-star hotel.
We got to stop right there. I have not eaten at Solage.
Nope.
I mean, this is like
They've got a cool little bar outdoors too, the Pico bar.
Yeah, it wasn't there when I was there. It opened in the last couple of years, but
If you want to
it's
just
really
like
cool.
pop in casually too,
I've been to the Pico Bar.
Yeah.
They have a crazy good mezcal tequila selection there.
for sure.
Solage, I mean, that must have been just absolutely incredible.
It was crazy. It was a kind of definitely like a level up for sure. I had done a lot. I'd been at Grange forever. I'd worked all over Sacramento, worked all over the world, and getting that opportunity, I was hired as the chef de cuisine there. So I was kind of taking a step back, going from an executive chef level to a number 2, and with the idea that was coming, that the executive chef role was coming, and just about the time that the existing executive chef was leaving, I heard from Clay, and he was like, "Hey, I got an opportunity in Sacramento. Would you like to come back, partner, ownership, the whole deal?" And I was like, "I don't know, maybe." I never really wanted to own my own place. I was doing pretty well in hotels, and then my wife, my now wife, and then we had gotten married. We wanted to start a family, so our parents are here. We had the help. We had all the things.
Where were you? So where were you living when you were working at Solage?
Downtown Napa.
Oh wow.
Yeah, so it wasn't too far away. We
course.
still saw our families regularly, but we were kind of coming back and forth, and so the idea that we were going to have a baby, and they were willing to help. My mom's retired, her mom's retired, was huge. So called Clay back up and was like, "I'm interested, but let's like figure it out what the concept's going to be." And so we started working on it, and that process was a long process. It was a year and a half or so.
Wow.
And he was trying to, he was leaving LowBrau and kind of going out on his own. And I had just got the promotions, and I was the executive chef of Solage now.
Wow.
And maintained the Michelin Star while I was there. It was awarded the 5-star, 5-diamond Forbes Award for the hotel, and so it was hard, right?
Well, and I think part of like the appeal to come back to was just the burgeoning scene. It's like the farm to fork kind of concept had been around. Grange was obviously a restaurant that was really well known for farm to fork, and you had been at Mulvaney's, but there was also this kind of like opportunity to put our own
A different way
stamp
of looking
on
at
that. And so I think whether Brad thought of himself this way or not at the time, he's a super entrepreneurial person. And so when we started concepting, the restaurant, it was like, how do we take this idea of farm to fork and do something really unique and creative, with that, kind of ethos of farm to fork. So I think that's, for entrepreneurs, to be able to like carve a path, is always an appealing thing. So starting a family, is obviously, part of the story. And then, just to be able to do something special too. And in fact, that's like where the name Canon came from. When we had been, like Brad said, it was a process where we were kind of just talking about, what we wanted Canon to be in the kind of restaurant space. And at the time, without it having a name, we continued to say like, we'd love to be thought of one day as this kind of like restaurant that sits among, the legacy of great restaurants in the community. And it was totally aspirational. So we were just like, like in the canon of great restaurants. And so that kind of ended up sticking around, but it also became a driving point for us too. A lot of times in life or business or, in anything that you do, setting that intention, you often gravitate towards it. If the intention is there, if that idea of what you want to be is there, you start becoming that. And so when we talked about wanting to do something special, it ended up becoming that because we had set out to do that from the beginning, and even called our restaurant.
Yeah.
Right, yeah.
That.
Love it. Love
So yeah,
it.
we when then we were off to the races. The opening was crazy here. We opened pretty big and made a splash, and then onward to the Michelin Guide and onward to all the other things. So it's been a ride, and then now we have the opportunity, like Clay said, to be really entrepreneurial. I didn't know, I had worked in hotels for 20 years, so I was entrepreneurial in the way that like I got to improve this business because I'm accountable, but I wasn't in the way that I am now. Right.
course,
So
way different.
and little did I know at the time that owning a business would then make me want to own more and make more money and do more things and be part of the community and all of the things that we do now. It's been a 6-year journey. Right?
Wow.
So, super stoked. Right. And that's the fun thing that we do now. Now that Canon's established enough that we have a team here in place, that it really allows Clay and I to be more entrepreneurial and find other projects to work on and be creative in that space.
That's amazing, and I gotta think it's scary to step off the ledge.
Yeah.
That especially that first time. I know I hesitated like crazy, and when you get a couple years down the line, you wish you would have done it earlier. But to see you take that step, and now to progress inside and outside of the kitchen and into something just way more than it ever could have been, even how great of a place you were beforehand. I got to think that's just a fun ride.
Oh, totally. I mean, when I left Grange, I thought, okay, cool, I'm going to be a chef, right? I'm going to be a chef forever. And you always kind of explain it as like, when you're the sous chef, you're like working till 1 a.m, right? And then you're the chef de cuisine, and you're kind of like writing menus and being creative. And then when you're the executive chef, you're pushing papers, and you're checking in with people, and you're holding people accountable. To me, that was like the top of the mountain, right? And then we step into this, and it was a little different because in the hotels I had staffs of over 100 people. We only have, I think, to this date, 55 employees or something like that.
Oh, wow.
So I had a lot of people working for me in the hotels, but it was different, right? There's all this structure. There was HR departments and accounting departments and this, that, and the other thing. And so I wasn't really super familiar with like cash flow, right? Hotels are crazy because they have it. and so I never had to worry about it.
The food and beverage program's like an amenity.
Yeah.
So it's like, it's underperforming, but who cares? We have rooms that are filled.
Yeah. So when you, like you said, when you jump off the ledge, now you're in the pool. And the water's leaking out of it. When you're first starting, you're like, it's scary.
It is.
And I don't think that a lot of people get it unless they don't get it unless they've experienced it, right?
Yeah.
And so now that a couple years in, we finally got to a place where we weren't like losing sleep over it. Right?
And I think when you look at you hear it all the time about the restaurant industry being really difficult, and it is, because what it requires is a lot of attention. And what Brad brings to the table and how we complement each other, is like Brad's a very organized person. He obviously has the chops in the back of the house. And, on the other side, there's just, in the restaurant business, there's just 1,000 things happening all the time. And, it's nice to have a partner who can take a lot of that stuff off of the plate. And so, working together as a team, the business that's very challenging becomes a lot easier. However, you still have to have business acumen. You still have to be accountable to what comes into the restaurant, how you're costing things, who you bring in on your team, how we're managing those folks, the labor hours. There's 1,000 levers that need to be pulled every single day. And, when you're an employee, sometimes you don't worry about all those other levers. And when you're an owner, that's all you see, and so it requires just constant attention.
Yeah.
But, you either, I think in a lot of cases you have it, or you just don't.
Yeah.
And so we're lucky that we both kind of have that mentality where it's like, it doesn't matter, how small the task or how large the implications of something are. We're just rolling up our sleeves all the time. and that I think is what makes a good partnership too. You know,
We trust each other, right? I know I don't have to worry about him, right? I don't. If he's taking the day off. Cool, I don't care.
Yeah.
Right. Like,
Yeah,
I know
like-
because I know his job's done, right? And if it's not done, then it'll be done. And the same with me. Like, some days are easier for me, some days are easier for him. Right now, we have somebody out on vacation in the front of the house. Clay's filling in on those shifts, right? I go home because we got a team in the back. But when the chef's on vacation or she's out on maternity leave
Yeah.
or whatever, like that's when my turn to step up and get in the kitchen is. Or if I have to write a new business plan or look at the P&L and understand where our costs are going or whatever, like. That's that we know what our jobs are and we trust each other to do them. And I think that good partnerships are run that way, and we're on the same team, right? We bicker at each other all the time.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, like we know what each other's
We're
doing.
in the same foxhole. So.
Yeah, exactly.
And and when you think about restaurants and bars, it's often a thing that a lot of people who are entrepreneurial or just maybe like to cook or something. They have this idea like, oh, it would be great, open up a restaurant, and I want to own my own, B&B. I want to have my own bar and make cocktails for people. But what they're not seeing is the things that have to happen in order to make it actually function and for it to survive. And so when Brad and I got together and formed a partnership, we knew that this was going to be a divide and conquer, but then also, we're back to back, fighting for success too. And that's important to have a partner in this industry. I think, is critical. I don't, I couldn't imagine doing this type of business on my own.
Amazing. And you kind of beat me to it. I'm fascinated by the joining of two people to form a business. All my corporations are done with business partners, and I loved it, but it's such a dynamic, is really what it is. Sounded like you guys had an extensive plan together, a year and a half of this. Were you guys divvying up some of the things along the way? How much of that process of that planning ended up falling in place the way that you thought it would and had to audible? Curious
well, I think
on that.
A lot of it is, collaborative, and it's also, you have to have a little bit of blind trust too, especially in the beginning, because, Brad and I didn't have a very, deep relationship before we had partnered together. So you have to just trust yourself as a person in a partnership, and vice versa. And he wouldn't have known at that time, what my strengths or weaknesses were, and vice versa. And so I think a lot of it is just communication and collaboration and working together, and a willingness to see something succeed. Just like in any relationship, if the end goal is success, then you're going to find a way to work and navigate around, the ups and downs. And it wasn't any different in a business partnership either. And and especially when it's a day-to-day operation partnership versus I've got a partner who is putting in some money into this deal. That's a lot different than, hey, I'm relying on this person, to do something that I have no idea how to do, which is run a kitchen. Right.
Yeah.
And Brad is capable of doing a lot of the stuff that I do day in and day out, but who has the bandwidth to do both?
Of course.
Right?
And that happened. I mean, the first 3 years here, I was in the kitchen, right? In the kitchen all day, 16 hours a day.
Now, was that something that you were used to with your?
Yeah, I was used to it, and it was something that I think there's the thing about being a chef is it's your right brain, left brain. You're an accountant. You're a mentor. You're a artist. You're a drill sergeant. You're a housekeeper. You're all the things that you need to be. And when you have the artist component in there, which most artists I think would feel this way, you're obsessed, right? So the hours aren't. We work a lot of hours. It's hard work, but you're not like doting on how much you work, right? You're obsessed. So so I was doing that, but that shrank my bandwidth. I didn't have a lot of the time to really like look into the P&L a lot, or I was doing the costing and things that I needed to do to make sure that we were probably charging the right amount of money, but in some cases we weren't, and that had to do with all the dynamics of how much people were spending when they're coming to the restaurant, or with spending, or like there's costs, but there's also like straight up cash flow, right? So he was doing a lot of that early on, and then as we got 3-4 years in and we got through the pandemic, and our jobs have changed. Right? We've evolved to where now we have chefs in the restaurants, and so we've taken our it's evolved, right? We've changed the way that we do things a little bit, and I think it's just gotten better. It's given us more bandwidth to do more things, and now we can be more entrepreneurial, and now we can grow our company.
Yeah. Every day you're open, it's like it's another set of data that you can work with, right? And again, just talking about like good partnerships and operating a business, it's always calibrating, right? You have to be comfortable with constantly trying to, tinker with it, and you're not trying to, overthink or over change things, but you just have to be comfortable that some things are going to have to evolve in order for us to be successful. And so I have to say, like, I think large part of our success is that the first 3 years, like even up and through the pandemic, Brad and I were in here every single day.
Yeah.
And so not only are we doing the stuff that we're doing now, although now we have more ventures and have a lot more on our plate in that sense, but just being available to kind of like to drive the culture and the vision and to share what we think is important. And so you end up having folks that are on our team that are seeing things through our eyes, and that's really, you can't in this business, I don't think, and this is just speaking from our own experience, like to be able to tell someone to do something is one thing, but to be able to show them is another.
Yep.
And to model it, how we talk to people, how we engage with guests, how we want people to feel when they walk in the door and when they leave. And a handbook doesn't do that.
Yeah.
So that was, I think, very important for both of us to be here day in and day out, and to this is our baby in a sense, and while we have other while we have other ventures, this really has created a precedent for what we want the other ventures to kind of like. It has the DNA of Canon, which is kind of like the home base of a lot of our ideas as far as like how hospitality works in our mind.
Right, and that's how people look at it too, right? You open a new restaurant, they're like, oh yeah, the guys from Canon are opening a new restaurant.
Yeah.
Right? Like that's
Exactly.
They don't say, and as much as I love Franquette, they don't say the guys from Franquette are opening up a new restaurant, right? Because Canon was the thing that we built our reputation on.
Yep.
And now it enables us to do all of these other things, and so it's good to see it evolve, and it's been a wild ride.
Couple things I want to say before it leaves my mind, but as you're describing how you guys were here every day for the first 3 years, and you guys are here a lot even still, the culture here is very small family. That's at least what I see when I come here. I forget her name, but
Jess, yeah,
Jess,
you mentioned it
she's waited on me several times, and she's just phenomenal at her job. And I remember asking her how long she's been here, and she's been here working
from day one, so 6.5 years.
But I mean, and I know as we're talking about this, Rene being a business owner, owning a big mortgage company, over 30 employees, I know this is resonating with you, but just how important it is. I mean, back in the day, I used to work at Jack's Urban Eats and Paisanos, completely different restaurants. But I've worked in restaurants to at least know, and even been to other restaurants where you know that it's not the same, and you know that the culture is not the same type of culture that you guys are, building here. Obviously, there's going to be some turnover here and there, some bad apples or people that come and go. But ultimately, when I hear you talk about that, that has to be one of the top things for you guys, is that culture that you guys have.
Yeah, I mean, I think for myself and for Brad, like, we are genuinely interested in our employees' like success as people in our business, in their career. And so we share that with them, you know, and like I want to see them happy. I want to see them succeed. And it's going to be tough. It's a tough business. But I think, you know, if you are genuinely invested in people, the return is that they're invested in you and what you want to accomplish. And for us, the hospitality, you know, we know the food is going to be great and creative and fun, and people are going to come in here and, you know, have a great time. But that's all part of an ambiance that's created by our team.
Yeah.
You know, and so for them to buy in, we have to buy into them. And I think that that's something that we do.
Yeah.
Yeah, we don't. I mean, there is no Franquette without Elena, right?
Right.
Elena was the pastry chef here for 4 years. So we built that place not for her, but because of her, right? And the same thing goes with our new venture in Folsom. Like, you know, we have people in place that we plan on allowing them to grow. I mean, this is a small restaurant, right? There's not a ceiling a mile high. You know, you get to a certain level working here, and like there isn't much growth opportunity past executive chef and general manager, right? Like so what do you do then? You start to build. We're able to build new things, right? We've taken people along the way to where we have trust in them, and we're able to, like, you know, push them up and prop them up, and then, you know, the idea is that we build these businesses and they get to run them, and then maybe one day they take them, right?
Yeah, and I mean, I remember, you know, so I've got my uncle is a mentor.
Our uncle.
Our uncle,
Great Uncle Tom.
is a business mentor of mine, and you know, one of the things he, you know, shared with me early on, and you hear about this a lot. Like, as a person, I am comfortable working on not just my strengths but my weaknesses as well. But for the most part, most people just want to accentuate what they're good at. And instead of putting people in places where there's a weakness or a challenge, you know, that doesn't always feel good, and not everyone is interested in that. So you may as well try and find the things that they're good at or interested in, because you're going to get, you know, more excited productivity, you know, from them, because they like what they're doing and they have, you know, something to look forward to, as opposed to like, oh man, I'm doing this role that I don't really care about, but you know, I know it's my weakness and I got to work on that. That's not for everyone, and it shouldn't be. It's like, what do you want to do?
I love that.
Like, what do you like about what you do, and how do we carve out a role that allows us to amplify that, you know, aspect of you that's really strong and great, so that you feel confident and good coming into work, because that thing that you're looking forward to is something that you're already good at.
Which goes hand in hand when I was here and we had the long conversation. I still feel this. If you put me in a position as a waiter here, I think I would kill it. But if you put me in the back with the chefs, I would lose my shit. I would lose my shit, 100%.
I wouldn't come if you were in that.
Well, and think about it. I mean, that, to your point, though, like what you said, right? You worked at Paisanos and Jack's, right? Not a career for you.
Yeah.
There's a lot of transient employees that work in this business.
Yeah.
A lot of our employees are not here for the long term. This is not their career. Make good money. Some of them, it will be their career. And those people go on to be managers and owners and things like that, like we did. But the idea of what Clay's saying, to keep them motivated, put them in places that they're good at, also while knowing that they potentially have a pretty strong attrition rate, right?
Yeah.
That they're not going to be here forever, and how we can invest in them, put them to the, you know, a server has to run their section like a business, right? They have to be entrepreneurial. They have to make more money. They make more money. They make more tips, right? So in the kitchen, right, they're learning life skills. They're learning organizational skills, cleaning skills, you know, time management, speed and efficiency. Like, we have to empower them in that realm, not the idea that they're a cook, they're a waiter, or they're a, you know, a host or a busser.
Yeah.
You know,
If I'm a business owner in almost any other like industry or like realm, and someone comes to me who's been in the restaurant business for, you know, a good clip, 5-6 years or whatever, you know, you're going to get someone who is a hard worker and, you know, you can rely on, because this job requires relying on each other to succeed. And so, if there's any people hiring folks out there, you know, even if they don't have any
This dude's
industry
licking his
experience.
He's licking his chops right now when you say that.
You're speaking my language. Our,
Yeah.
our number one guy, he's now our general manager at manages everything that we have going at the mortgage company. Joe Kelly, absolute beast at mortgages. He was running the most recent one before he came on. He was running the Brookfields, right, just off of 80 out in Roseville and everything like that. That service industry grind in that background, just above and beyond for our mortgage clients. Yeah. And he has a different work ethic. It literally changed how we looked at how we hired, because it's a different type of person. It's who I want to be around. It's who you want to be in front of your clients at all times. So kudos to you guys. When you said that, I'm like, yes. That is
and
the
especially that, you know, style of restaurant too, right? So, somewhat corporate,
correct
setting. But you have to be paying attention to 1,000 things at the same time.
Well, and if you're selling add avocado to a burger every day, that might be $10,000 a year in your pocket, right? You know,
wild.
You know what I mean? Because that's $3 an ad, 100 burgers a day, right?
Yeah.
Like 10% or 20% of that number is a number that extrapolates out to that's
time.
what entrepreneurial spirit is, right?
Yeah.
So you
time.
take that and you push it towards something else, and it gives you the idea that the little things matter, right, along the way.
Yeah.
I want to ask a question. I'm going to ask both of you, but what would you say is Brad's single greatest strength?
I would say organization. You know, just like the ability to, you know, we see a lot of, we have a lot of peers, we have a lot of friends in the industry, we see a lot of deals, we look at a lot of deals, and oftentimes when you see restaurants that are struggling, it's because the organization of the day-to-day, I mean, everything is measured to the gram here, and you never have to. A new person could come in, open up the recipe book, and go, "Okay, I can make this," because it's all thoughtfully put together in a place where everyone can find it. And you know, and if you go into the kitchen again, it's immaculate. You know, it's like it's just part of the package of, you know, working in that kitchen is like everything is in its place, everything is labeled, all the tape is always cut with scissors, never torn. It's the little details that make, you know, a big difference, and it just starts with organization.
I've never been to the French Laundry, but it's funny. As you're saying that, my buddy Chris Kennedy, who used to own a restaurant somewhere in Sonoma, phenomenal cook, and he was like describing that, you know, with the French Laundry, how they cut the tape perfectly, everything's spotless. He puts his finger there, and it's just, anyways, without going on.
Yeah.
What would be Clay's best greatest strength?
Clay's extremely thoughtful. So I'm very reactionary. I'm loud and I get upset and whatever. Clay kind of takes it, and he takes it in, and he thinks about things and distills them. And sometimes he comes to the same opinion as me, and sometimes he doesn't. But it's always thoughtful, and he's always got a reason for it. And for me, like, I have to have somebody like that around me. Otherwise, you know, I'm just chopping people down.
I absolutely love hearing that, because like with Rene and I, we've been working together for, I want to say, going on 7 years now, doing the podcast now for a little close to a year. But time and time again, I would say with you and me, I am the most emotional dude you'll ever meet, and this is the brains. And usually, it's a compliment. You need that complimentary,
Have to have it.
because I feel like I've been in, whether it's business or life, but a lot of our dealings, I feel like I'm super excited, and Renee's like, let me go pick this apart for the next 4 hours.
Right.
I'm not going to be excited. I know you want me to be excited. Then we'll meet back up, and we'll talk if this is smart or not.
Yeah, and you know, so Brad and I talk every day, every morning, and you know, we talk about, you know, what happened, what's going on, what should happen, and a lot of times, you know, my approach is, you know, we're having a conversation. I'm like, okay, I'm going to process this, because if we're going to implement anything, right, you know, there's a lot of nuance to it as well, right? So there's like, okay, what's the moving parts? What needs to happen in order for this to work, you know, and to have you know, the outcome in mind of like, you know, mutual success or, you know, something changing. Okay, what is the outcome of that? So sometimes there's a lot to it that, you know, that's just what I enjoy. It's kind of like I do it because I like to look at things and examine them and then identify a way to roll it out or implement in a way that we're going to get the objective that we want. And so, you know, and Brad in the kitchen, you know, you know, being a chef, it is reactionary. You get an order in, it's like, hey, you know, like if you observe a kitchen, which is great about our restaurant, having the open kitchen, you can see the team working and the cooks working on the line. They're just in it. They're in a zone, responding. You say, hey, order in chicken, squash, Brussels, drumsticks, tots. Tots are going with fish, you know, et cetera, et cetera. Their mind is processing and reacting and responding. I get to be the one who can contemplate and take time thinking about rolling things out.
I always tell them the kitchen. That's Ron Burgundy. Like you put it on the you put it on the teleprompter. We're reading it. Like
That is great.
that's
so good.
That's it. You know. So like I'm not. You know, if it doesn't say no cheese, if you ring in a burger no cheese and then that person goes, oh, you know what, I'm gonna have a salad. If that salad doesn't say no cheese on it, then I'm putting cheese on it.
Yeah.
Like I have no idea that the burger 5 minutes ago was for that same person.
Yep.
Why somebody else, you know, the server is more closely to it or he's more closely to it. Like, you know, and the same thing goes when we sell catering events. When we you know, or any kind of communication to the kitchen, like put it on the paper, ring it in, put it on a ticket. Like we're not.
It's
paying
IO.
Yeah, we're not paying attention.
It's IO. You know, now what's great about, you know, that's on the line, right? We have you have a position in the kitchen, you know, that's kind of the quarterback, the liaison between the front of house and the back of house. And often that's staffed by our CDC or our sous chef or Brad, and they are mindful of that. I do think that is part of what makes us great too. Is that our team is also thinking about experience and hospitality that way. But as soon as it gets called out,
Yeah.
if you're on the line, what you call out is what you're gonna get.
Yeah. So good.
I want to transition real quick. I want to talk a little bit about the menu, what I feel makes you guys super unique, and then we'll kind of like drift into your other projects and what's up and coming. But I was thinking about this when I was coming over here, but there's not a ton of restaurants that have seasonal menus that change things. I mean, you guys are changing up your menu a lot. Would you agree with that?
Well, I'd say in like Sacramento, you have seasonal restaurants, right? You have all this, you know, bounty around us, and I do think a lot of restaurants do think seasonally, especially in our kind of like peer group. But what we do is a little different. You know, that's what sets us apart is what we do with the seasonality. And I'll let Brad kind of talk to that.
I think there's a good chunk of the way that we operate with the food has to do with, it's tomato season. Because we got a tomato salad on the menu for 4 months, right? That's one side of it. We're going to keep that on until they're not good anymore, and then we're going to take it off. But then there's this other part of it where we get something that is only available for a very short time. And what we have to do is really understand how to maximize that.
Give me an example of what.
So a perfect example is right now we had a butternut squash dish on the menu for the last couple months. Butternut squash all over the place forever. It holds it, whatever.
Yep.
So a buddy of mine who knows a farmer in Yolo County says to me, he goes, I have some lunga de Napoli. And lunga de Napoli is a giant butternut squash.
I saw them sitting.
They're
over
sitting
there.
out here, yes. And so
They're like the size of your leg, bro.
they're huge. They're like 60 pounds a piece.
Oh.
And so it's a huge squash. They take very long to grow, and they don't usually mature in the amount of time that the growing season happens. So they just got ready like a week and a half ago. But
While they were sitting in there?
well, no, they're on the plant.
Okay, got it.
And so we just got them in on Saturday. And so the idea that something that takes that long to grow and doesn't finish growing until potentially there's frost
Yes.
or rain, or you can even get out in the fields and harvest it because it's so muddy. Like there's all these things that have to happen correctly for that. So a Lunga de Napoli doesn't happen every year because sometimes the squash gets halfway to being mature and it gets buried in the mud, or it gets frozen, or whatever.
Wow.
And so when it happens, they harvest them off the plant, they get it out of the field, right, and then it starts to cure. And so I'm like, I need 400 pounds of it, right? So bring me 400 pounds of it.
Oh.
Because now I know that I have a little runway on it that's not going to go bad, right? But I know I'm not going to be able to get it again.
Yeah.
And so that happens across the board with things. Green walnuts are something that we play around with here a lot because the walnuts are not going to be green for very long, right? So we buy 200-300 pounds at a time. So those kinds of, so we do that because that takes a lot of foresight, takes a lot of preparation. It takes a lot of time to process that much product at one time to ensure that its seasonality happens in the peak, but that we're preserving it for a long period of time. So
Are those contacts that you're making with people out there and farmers and basically just walking the soil out, is that more your responsibility than Clay's?
yeah. And but I will say that more than half of the reason we make those connections is because they end up in the restaurant.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
That's fun.
So he ends up with them, and they're like, "Hey, I grow this," and can you pass this card on to the chef, and he'll talk to him, and he'll make the relationship, and that's a relationship we get to carry on with us to whatever else we do. But I'm looking, if I'm looking for green walnuts, then I get to call Emily McNamara and say, "Hey, I'm ready for 300 pounds of green walnuts."
That is
Well,
awesome.
and,
That is
and
awesome.
just we're so lucky to be where we are.
Right.
And if you go to the Wednesday farmers market in the summertime, or did it move back yet or into the freeway?
Sunday, into the freeway,
So on Sunday on the freeway, you'll see all the chefs there talking to the proprietors of the farms, and there's a market reality here too, because it's like, hey, look, we got a lot of this, or we don't have very much of this, and the cost is up. Okay, well, your menu has to adjust with that. You can't just be stubborn to, this has to be on my menu. You have to be flexible enough, in Sacramento, unless you're going to eat it on cost.
Yeah. Yeah, so like if the price of tomatoes goes up by 18% this year, which it looks like it might, then you probably don't get, my job is to say you're probably not going to get a tomato salad at Canon that is all tomatoes. So this year maybe we're putting cucumbers in it. Maybe this year, so couple the creativity with the fact that we have to respect the costs, with coupling it with the idea that we're exposing it in the peak of seasonality. And I think that we're uniquely, based on our team, not me, but like our team and their ability to process these things and deal with the creativity that has to happen in order to take advantage of those opportunities and to mitigate the risk on those bad times. Like that's where we're uniquely positioned. We ferment things, we grow mold, we do all kinds of weird shit.
Yeah.
And that helps us create flavor profiles that are different than everybody else. We wanted to be and use the canon of global cuisine to showcase what happens here in Sacramento.
I think that's, and sorry to cut you off, but like, to me, that's what is really exciting about what we do. That, it's in a class of its own. There, I'm not saying that we're the only one, but to take an item that's seasonal and then to put a spin on it that allows it to the vegetable to stand out, but to also be really memorable in a way that you might not have enjoyed it like that before. Like right now, like even we were talking about the squash dish, like the way that the flavors come together on that dish with the Hoshigaki yogurt and the spiced cashew, like I never would have thought of putting those things together. Mm-hmm. When I have squash, I might have a little olive oil and salt and pepper, but to put a yogurt that has this like tanginess juxtaposed with the sweet, fleshy, kind of nixtamalized squash, and then to have that texture of that spiced cashew on top, it's like, it's a melody, and that's what these guys are doing in the kitchen, is like they're creating things that are considering, how things go together, and texture and technique.
That's how we can prepare it for 200 people a night.
That too.
Yeah, that's gotta be really, really, really fun for you as a creator to be in the kitchen with your guys and sampling. 'Cause I'm sure like sometimes you'll sample some stuff that isn't it, but once you find it, the excitement level on that, I mean, that's got to be fun.
Yeah, it's sorry. Go ahead. I was gonna say it's fun to be a fly on the wall on that in that process too. Like, we'll have like Sean, our culinary director, and he'll come to the table with 3 different presentations of a dish that he's thinking of, and obviously you have Brad, who can work through flavor and texture and things like that, but it's the little thing, like our Brussels sprouts and how it started and how it ended up were kind of 2 different things in the process it took to get it to where it is today, which is one of my favorite dishes on the menu right now. So it's fun to be a part of that creative process in the kitchen and see it unfold. And a lot of times when you look at the menu anywhere, it's the value and the interest in the dish that you're looking at here. There's so much time and effort and preparation that starts in the field that's happening.
Yeah.
And then to the selection of that product, to how that product is treated before it gets on your plate. And so a lot of times as a consumer, you're like, man, this is a great dish. But there were literally hundreds of steps and touches that had happened to get that onto your plate. It's a totally underrated part of
That's the difference,
business.
I think, between really exceptional restaurants and not exceptional restaurants, is how you source, right? Where you get your stuff from. Because it's easy to call. It's easy to call on the phone and be like, hey, can I get some onions? Can I get some carrots? Can I get some squash? Can I get some whatever? Can I get some tomatoes? And it's a totally different thing to go down to the farmer's market with your wagon, talk to the guy. And it's a totally different thing than to have a farmer that you call once a year, that you're waiting for their stuff to be ripe and you're not willing to put anybody else's product on the menu until you have that person's product.
I mean, I could make the argument for the wine that, like, our favorite wine that we drink. You could make the same argument.
Sure.
Stuff that's not massively produced. I mean, small. Like we were talking about Occidental. We went and did a wine tasting. Like we can't even sell you our wine. Stuff like that. I know that you had a question, but I wanted to say I'm going to speak for the people right now in this next statement. This is a 2-parter. I know that you guys have a huge following on social media and just in Sacramento alone. We're fine without tomatoes. I'm speaking for the people. So if the tomato prices go up and we have to get rid of the tomatoes, we don't need tomatoes. We're fine with that. The chicken drumsticks and the tots, that has to be there at all times. So I just want to make sure.
Yeah, we made the mistake of it was brief. It was
me being reactionary and emotional.
You were yelling at somebody, weren't you?
We went a year in, and I said, I'm changing the whole menu. The whole thing. I changed it all at once.
And I would say that it wasn't super like reactionary and emotional. It was more like, like, hey, we came out of the gates, and we have this concept that people are really interested in. Let's double down on that, which is like there's an aspect to Canon. For those that are aware or are coming into a restaurant open to anything goes, you're going to have the best time.
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
If you come into our restaurant and you're like, where's the steak and potatoes? We got steak and potatoes. It's just different than what you might have expected. There's a little bit element of that. And over the 6.5 years, we've been lucky enough to have a following of folks that are looking for that and looking forward to that kind of change. We went a little too far at the end of year 1 because we had some staples that, people would come in time and time and time again. And so, we were like, okay, let's double down on this. Like, we're gonna mix it up. We're gonna be adventurous, all that stuff.
I like.
There were people flipping tables over.
Oh my God.
when they were in the
Where are the
drumsticks.
tots? Where are the drumsticks?
Well, to be clear, because we love going to nice restaurants. I mean, that fine dining and wine are like two of my favorite things in life, and I feel it's respectful when you go to a restaurant and you just say, "Do as you will."
Yeah.
I'm going to sit back. I like doing both. I'm going to say, "Do as you will," and give me a side of the chicken drumsticks and the tots. I like having both.
Fair enough.
No doubt.
The next is, this is controversial. This is completely off subject, but I love, especially when I'm in the presence of a chef, and I don't even think me and Uncle Clay have even talked about this. I'm not asking this question in regards to having it here at your restaurant. I'm just asking it just as a general question, and I want a yes or no. Ketchup.
Yes.
Yeah. Who cares?
And it's got to be Heinz.
Yes.
Do not give me that bullshit.
Yeah, Heinz is
where
great.
like you're
Okay.
not
I
doing
was like, what?
If I'm serving ketchup, it's got like nobody wants homemade ketchup.
Thank you.
Nobody
No
wants
ketchup.
The sugar-free
nobody
ketchup's
wants
the
that.
worst.
Nobody wants that, and nobody like. And I hope I'm not putting anybody on blast, but nobody wants Sir Kensington's ketchup
It's
either.
the worst.
They want Heinz
57.
57.
Yeah. I
That's it.
can't.
And they went through 57 iterations to get the
figured
best
it out.
ketchup.
Yeah.
That's like, you got to respect that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just it's a little random, but I just wanted to say that. I mean, there's
I mean,
great.
it is, so
one of the perfect
part
foods.
of the
Yeah.
part of the thing about being in the hospitality industry is that, there is sometimes an expectation that whatever the guest wants, they get. And to an extent, we're trying to make them as happy as possible.
Of course.
But a lot of times, and this is where the tableside kind of manner comes in, it's like this is the way that the dish is prepared, to give you the best experience possible. And okay, you want to put ketchup all over your steak.
That's just weird. I was talking
You don't get a discount.
I was talking about more for breakfast food.
Okay, just in general.
Just in
okay.
general.
You
Well,
can
you know, I
ketchup
think-
for the tots. Are you
Yeah,
kidding me? There's
yeah,
people that
some
order.
people
You got a
ask
nut
for it.
allergy or your kid, and you're gonna order the tater tots. Are amazing by themselves
Yeah.
without the mole.
So
Yeah.
so
But
so at
You
the
want
end of
ketchup?
the day, the hope is that people will give the food a chance to present itself the way
Yes.
that it was intended.
Yes.
But if you are, just adamant, like, our oysters, as for example, before anyone even tries the oysters the way that we presented, they'll often say like, "Hey, can I get a lemon and can I get, some hot sauce, right? Or some mignonette?" So we serve it with these really special vinegars that we make in house and are often like we'll source things from our garden out here on the walk up, and while we're happy to bring that stuff over, I just would love people to have, because that's part of the adventure of being here. Yes, it's cool like to get things the way that you want them to be.
Yep.
But you could get things the way you want them to be almost anywhere. When you're here, I want you to have an experience that is memorable and interesting, whether you like the vinegar or maybe it wasn't your thing and you prefer lemon and
well, and if you want hot sauce, right? Like, we have lemon, and we make a hot sauce. So we grow chilies in the garden,
Yeah.
out in front of the restaurant every summer.
Yeah.
Come on.
And we make the estate hot sauce,
Yeah.
every summer.
But
So we don't have to. We have Tabasco, so we have it around. But like,
Yeah.
you want hot sauce for your oysters? Like, okay, we made some.
Yeah.
Brad's built different too. He's built like us, different.
He's got that dog
He's
in
got
him.
the dog in him.
And that circles back to what I was even going to interject not too long ago. It was on a previous podcast. We were talking about when somebody's just a savant and they're what they do, it's art. It's art what you're doing. Like it really is the way that you develop the flavors and everything like that.
Yeah.
It's his form of art, and that's why I love when I get to a place and I want to go on the ride that you guys saw. You know, that's a big thing.
Well, and I think like when you go out to eat, there's like a few different kind of like categories of dining, right? Where it's like I've got something that I need to be satiated. So it's like I got a craving for
Gym
X.
boys.
Yep,
Jim Boys,
100%.
Hitting
Every
that-
day.
I'm hitting that drive-through. I've got, I'm having a nice meal out, but I'm craving, something straightforward where I know what I'm going to get. And then there's the like, you're having an experience, right? The value sometimes when you go out to eat is in breaking bread, opening some wine that maybe you're not familiar with, trying something new. Like, that's enriching to our lives. And while you might not do that every day, to carve out space in our lives where we can do something that's outside of our comfort zone, or to allow ourselves to experience things that's a little adventurous, like that's an enriching part of our lives that we should all allow for.
100%. It's almost like makes me think about the story. Now that I know the story that you just shared of that butternut squash, like I feel like if somebody orders that and they didn't hear the same story that I heard, they're getting cheap.
That's why we put those big squash out in the middle of the night. We're like, what are those?
And that is part of, like how we try and do things, and again, like you got to read the room, right?
Yeah.
And there are some guests who are here and they're having a business meeting, or they're here and they're not interested in that stuff. But then there are people who are here. And I have to say, through, the past 10 years or so, the customer kind of awareness of cooking technique and different flavor profiles has absolutely grown.
The pandemic changed that for everybody, right?
Yeah,
They all cooked at home. They all watched YouTube for 2 years, right? They know how to do things.
But even like, Bourdain and like this cooking shows and then you got, like Brad said, like during the pandemic, you had nothing better to do but to cook and to figure things out. And, so when people arrive at our restaurant now, they're a little more aware of things, and sometimes really interested in the technique and the specifics. And we're like, okay, great. And that adds value to the experience.
Love it. Let's transition a little bit. So we might have to get another bottle of wine in here. just that the St. Joseph is just in a bit. But beautiful. So talk to us a little bit about how Franquette came about. Whose idea was it? Both your idea at the same time? I mean, let's just kind of talk about that.
So I had during the pandemic started doing some consulting. Things were scary early on. We didn't know what the rest of our business was going to look like. We were trying our hardest to keep the employees working, keeping food and stuff coming in and out of the building. And so I picked up just some side work. And I had been in hotels for a long time, and so so I picked up a consulting gig, helping a developer build the kitchens and design kind of concepts for hotels. Well, that developer ended up owning and building the development in West Sac. And they had a space in there, and I was kind of under contract with them to do more than just the hotel stuff. And so he came and said, will you review some of these like business plans, performance? We have this 1,300 square foot space in West Sac, and let us know what you think about these business models and if they're going to work or not. And they wanted coffee, right? That there was nothing over there, and so they're like, we want a coffee shop. So I reviewed everything, and I was like, yeah, I mean, it's a coffee shop, whatever, cool. Is that what everybody needs over there? And for the most part, I will say that after 2 years of Franquette, like people wanted coffee, and so I was like, well, what if like there's these European style cafes? I spent time in Europe working and traveling and stuff, and every neighborhood has this European cafe, this cafe that you walk to in the morning, you get your pastry and your coffee, your cappuccino, your espresso, and then you kind of can come back for lunch and you can get a salad or a sandwich, and then at the end of the night, after you're getting a final, you can go in there for a beer, a glass of wine, or a little aperitivo or whatever. And so, but they're neighborhood-driven places, right? The neighborhood frequents them. People aren't coming from far away to go there. And so I was like, well, what about that? Like, how about this? And I pitched it originally. I think it was an Italian concept. And then Clay's the branding and marketing guy. So once I had like this is how much money it's going to make. This is what we're going to serve. This is how we're going to build it. To save money, we're not going to put a hood in. We're going to do this. We're going to put a little like oven in there, and we're going to do coffee and wine and all that, and then pass it on to him. And then that's when it just kind of transitioned into Franquette. We had Elena here on staff. Yeah, her and Jack met in Paris, and so we knew that we had the people in place.
She went to culinary school there, and she has a passion for a lot of the kind of cooking technique that you find in Paris, and like the concept Franquette, so we have a friend, Sarah Barcowie, who also happens to work with Fulcrum, who's a really amazing like mind around branding and design. And she had called up a friend and said, hey, we're working on this like kind of French style cafe. Like what, like, give me an idea of like, something that comes to mind when you think about that. And she said, Franquette. She said, it's like this, kind of come as you are, like kind of a term like all bon Franquette, like you're kind of a potluck, you're gathering friends and you're coming together and you're sharing food and you're drinking. It's like a jovial, kind of expression. We're like, this is perfect. It's aligned with our ethos as like operators. It's aligned with the vision of like, this kind of French cafe. And it also, when I was thinking about like, going through the brand exercise, I'm like, a lot of places that are French restaurants tend to feel unapproachable because people think like, oh, it's, French food is like,
They can't pronounce the name.
You can't pronounce the name, and it's just kind of intimidating, and you don't know what to order. And Franquette felt like this kind of like fun, kind of like term that anyone could kind of wrap their head around. And while it was centered around food as a meeting, I thought, to myself, I'm like, it sounds like what it's saying. Like, you think of like quête being like something small, and then like Frank being like French. I'm like, it kind of sounds like a little bit French, and so that really appealed to us as well. And then the kitchen design, what I really also love about it is that the kitchen, small as it is front and center. It's part of the bar, So I thought that was like this really unique thing, because one of the things that people love is watching people make food.
Freaking awesome.
So you're in the thick of it. So yeah, the Franquette has been great. Elena's doing a great job over there. She's cooking some really delicious food. People are coming from far and wide to the restaurant because they really love the food, but it is meant to be a neighborhood, cafe, and it's been awesome. It's been great.
It's funny hearing you share the story. I know Molly Nelson really well. I have sold multiple clients' houses in that development.
Yeah.
And it felt like for years, and this was before obviously they made it their way to you. For years they were saying, we're gonna bring a coffee shop here, because there's nothing there.
Yeah.
And I feel like people don't want to drive over, and there's
Yeah, I mean, we really are fortunate, like that community, the vision behind it and the vibe behind it. It's like really amazing. It's like it feels like this little oasis right on the river. Beautiful homes, and just you got amenities like the dog park across the street, and you got Drake's, and it just has such a great vibe. And then so the fact that there hadn't been something like this in there was great. And then I think again, we're fortunate to have had a following with the work that we did at Canon, and so you put those two things together on top of the great food that Elena's doing. Our only kind of pitfall is that it's 36 seats, including the patio. So, sometimes we'll have people come in like, oh yeah, we got 8 people here, like looking around, and I'm just like, oh man, like.
Well, here's
I'll tell you.
two things from that menu personally that I want to give a shout out on. Number one, I don't think have you been to Franquette?
No, I have
We
not.
got to make a field trip.
I am.
Who came up with the quiche?
It's Elena.
Elena, if you're listening to this, my name is Chris. We're going to meet soon.
Shout out.
But I will put that quiche
it's
like
incredible.
towards upper echelon. The second thing you introduced me to, and I laugh about this, but for whatever reason, I have again been known to just talk shit about things that I don't know why I'm even talking shit about them. And one of them,
power.
it's a special power. Except there was a Chardonnay that I didn't really appreciate, but the orange wine, and I swear that was such a delicious freaking bottle of wine.
Oh yeah. There's some orange wine out there that's garbage.
Yeah,
for-
So
and I
like,
think
don't
so.
like the idea that like orange wine is good. That orange wine was exceptional. I do
Yeah.
remember
Yeah.
it.
So I think
So good, bro.
It just so happened that on the menu at the time, and I don't even think it's on anymore. I knew that there was a standout orange wine on there. So you came in
At the right time.
and I don't even think it was prompted. I think you were just spouting off that you hate orange wine for some reason.
Yeah.
It came up. I was like, oh, I've got one that I think you'll enjoy. And you actually passed on it and had another wine. I can't remember what it was. And I brought it out. I'm like, we're having this.
Yeah.
And
Don't you love when your
and
nephew
it's
doesn't
mine.
believe in you?
Yeah,
Well,
Is that what it is?
hey, shout out to Clay because we've drank a lot of good wine and have eaten a lot of good food together. And it even happened here when Kendra and I came, and Clay just, probably being smart, you didn't tell me, and he just put this glass of wine in front of me. He goes, "Taste this," and I taste it, and I'm like, I don't even know what this is, but it is freaking delicious. He's like, that was a white Zinfandel.
Yeah, I was just gonna say he was out passing out wine Zinfandel to like because we had the Unified Wine and Grape Symposium in town this week, so we had like, wine som bloggers with like a couple million followers in the restaurant.
Oh, wow.
Clay's passing out white Zin to them,
Built different.
Well,
but it was a challenge, right?
Yeah.
They would accept it, and
Well,
it
it's
was
like
cool.
it's like you could put, and they had already ordered, baller wine, and it's like, what am I going to put in front of them?
Yeah.
That's any interest, to them, and because it has a local, kind of background with Daryl Cordy, and who's a, just a savant in his own right, well documented. He's just like taking this bleed off from like these Zin, kind of batches where they're trying to come up with these huge Zins. They were kind of like pulling this skin contact, off, and he's like, "Well, take it. I'll call it white Zin." It's like, just an amazing, like, who does that? Who
Yeah.
creates a category? Well, it's Daryl Cordy. That's who gets to create categories.
Big shout out to Cordy Brothers, staple in Sacramento. Did you know that I found this out? Every time that Greg Popovich comes to play in Sacramento, he goes to Cordy Brothers.
No, I
Every
did
time.
not
Yeah.
know that.
Every time. We're going to take a quick break, and then when we come back, we're going to finish it up with the new project that you guys have coming up, and we cannot wait to dive into that.
Great.
So we're back. One of the things that we skipped on that I want to go back now. Obviously, you're a big Boston Celtics fan, right?
Big time, yeah.
Big Patriots guy. So you're
Patriots guy.
you played
Big
football.
Bruins.
Played
Yeah,
football in high school.
yeah.
You're
College too.
built different. Oh
different.
shit! In college too.
Division 3.
Okay.
Oh man, throw him under the bus.
Brad's talking
man.
shit, man. He just wants to scream at you.
We were nationally ranked.
Oh yeah.
4-year starter and captain. So I'm just putting that out there.
Let's
Built
go.
different.
So outside of you being, this is like one of the biggest compliments I have. My favorite things in life: food, wine, and music. And there's very few people I know that know as much about music as Clay. So big shout out to you. But what I'm curious is just to know, at what point in your journey in your life did you say, I want to get into the restaurant business?
So my mom's side of the family is from Sacramento, and this is where I was born. I was born in Sacramento, but I moved to Massachusetts when I was 4. My dad had a small family. He was adopted, and so his parents, my grandparents, had a farm, 30-acre farm. And, at 30 acres, it's big enough to kind of be a pain in the ass and not big enough to, like, make a living off of it. But went back in the, 50s and 60s, you lived off of the land. They made hay, baled hay for the neighbors, and things of that nature. So it was perfectly fine at that day and age. But, as we were getting older and going to school and all that stuff, my parents are just like, I don't know if we can do, they had to work and manage the farm. And, I'm also in the summertime throwing hay up on the truck, and my friends are riding by on their bikes, and I'm like, oh, son of a bitch. I'm like, but that said, it created an incredible work ethic in me, and my respect for my parents is just, so high. But my mom's side of the family in California is huge. My dad's side of the family in Massachusetts is very small. So in the summer times, we'd come and visit the family here. And, so I'd have a summertime relationship with this big family. And what I didn't realize at the time is that 80% of the family there were actually family. 20% of them were like friends and neighbors who I was told were my cousins.
That's funny. That's funny.
But it was because my grandmother, so my mom's side of the family is Mexican, and like just always making tortillas, like always making food for everyone. You came over and you were made to feel like you're a part of the family. And so when the restaurant opportunity came to me, and this now is probably back in 2011 or whatever, so many years ago, I knew I had a knack for it. Now, prior to that, when I was growing up in a small town in Massachusetts, I would go out to shows, all ages shows. And so that's why I have this deep passion for like music scenes, and not just like going to a show at, a big venue, where I think the heartbeat of like a community is often in like the nooks and crannies, right? The places that people aren't always aware of, but should be. And once you see them, you get a real feel for like what's happening, and art and music is that way. And, every once in a while there'll be an artist or a musician who gets a level of, attention or credibility, and that's a big success for the scene. But for the most part, it's just like, our knucklehead friends making music and having fun, and like, and creating a space for people to like figure things out and to grow and to make friendships. And so I always loved that about music and art. It's just like it brought people together. The people were often a little odd and fun and weird.
Those are the best people.
For sure, and so, I ended up like helping a lot of my friends' bands because I wasn't a musician, but even at a young age, I was kind of like the entrepreneur guy. So my friends would be like, hey, can you help me like get people to show, or can you manage my band and like stuff like that? So I was always passing out flyers at the school, like, hey, come check out my friend's, Thunder Bear 2000 is their band or what. I'm like, I was like tying cigarettes to show posters to get people to come.
That's a great
It
idea.
worked.
That's
It
great.
worked.
Little Lucy's.
Yeah, so, when I moved, so my parents said, hey, we're done with the farm thing. I had graduated college. My two younger brothers had graduated school. I said, I'll drive you out. Like I had graduated college, wasn't sure, it was the year I graduated college, wasn't sure what I was going to do. And so I drove, my dad took a truck, took my mom in a truck and a trailer cross country, and they got a home up in Amador in Fairplay area, wine country. And I was like, maybe I'll kind of give it a go and stick it out and see what's going on. And because I had been involved in music before, Sacramento was kind of interesting to me because there were things happening. And, my parents lived in Fairplay in the wine country. There's nothing for me there, especially being like 24 or 25 years old. So I'm like, I'll go check things out here, and eventually met some folks. In fact, the first show that I helped put on in Sacramento, I was walking down, it was like Capitol and 19th, and there was a salon, and they had like, posters or something like that kind of got my attention. So I walked up. I was like, what do you guys do around here for fun? And they're like, oh, yeah, here's some places to go, and here's some restaurants, and got my hair cut. And I got to meet the owner, Marcy Landgraf, who's just this really interesting, amazing person. And she's like, what do you do? I'm like, well, I just moved here, and I also used to, put on shows. And they're like, oh, I've got this art loft downtown. Do you want to help me put on a show? And I'm like, sure. So immediately I was just like thrust into this. It was like a show with this band called The Snobs, who actually has a show coming up. Jason Boggs, who's the owner of Shady Lady.
Jason,
Yeah, so Filibuster was his old band as well. It was like the Snobs and like the Losing Streaks, is like, you know, another incredible like rock and roll legendary band, you know. And so I just started putting on shows at that art loft. And so that's how I kind of got to know a lot of folks in Sacramento, was through that. And that led me eventually to meeting my former business partner, who introduced me the idea of LowBrau, and it's his idea and concept, and kind of unveiled it in front of me. I was like, this has to happen. You know, like there's always sometimes been this thing inside of me where, you know, if I just have that, I'm like, this has to exist in the world. Mm-hmm. You know, like my friends who ended up doing ArtHotel and ArtStreet, you know, when they, you know, were kind of talking about it and bringing it to my attention, I was just like, I don't know what is going to happen, but this is going to happen. You know, and so it's just like that was kind of like me in the hospitality industry. I was just like, there's just something in me and it needs to come out, and so I'm gonna just push for it to happen. And we didn't know what we were doing. Thankfully, we had some mentors and folks who helped us out along the way. But then, you know, when I eventually decided to leave there, you know, to be able to do something that was, you know, when Canon first came about, it was. We probably started talking, 2015 or so?
Yeah,
like late 2015?
Right. Yeah.
Okay.
So I was in my 30s. I had a family. I was like, I don't want to do nightlife type stuff anymore. I'd like to do something a little more my speed. And so Canon came to be from there.
Love it, man.
Amazing.
Awesome story.
Amazing.
Brad, you want to talk now? We'll switch gears to, which I cannot wait to hear about. Funny enough, we got a little glimpse of it when we went to Brasswood, and Kendra came with a friend of hers, and she lives in Folsom.
Yep.
And I have multiple friends in Folsom, so I'm sure they're going to be getting pretty excited. But talk to us about the next endeavor.
Yeah. So, and this is kind of usually the way that things happen, and which one of us ever sees the space is kind of up for grabs. But an opportunity came where someone was like, "Hey, there's this second gen space in Folsom," like, and we get calls a lot. Like, people know that we're entrepreneurial. Like, they know that we're looking to grow. So we get calls from whoever, like, "Hey, we got a space. Hey, we got a space. Hey, we got a space." So, hey, there's a space you want to go look at. It's like 3,000 square feet. We've kind of narrowed down to the fact that, like, the days of like the 7,000 square foot restaurant are kind of over. We know what our niche is. We know that we have, we can take second gen spaces. We know we can take kind of Canon's kind of a B+ location when it comes to restaurants, right? So we know that we can take these. Franquette is alone over there on the other side of the river. So we know we can take these places that that don't have high foot traffic and make them destination restaurants. Now, this place in Folsom is totally different than that. They're like, "Oh, come look at it. Second gen space, doesn't need a lot of work. You can get in here pretty cheap." And I'm like, okay, cool. So we go look at it, and I look at Clay and I go, and we are constantly concepting restaurants. Like, we find a pipe dream, and we'll put together a concept, and we're pretty good at it now, and we can get it done pretty quickly. Pro forma business plan, the whole thing, pretty quickly. And so I was like, we don't really have a concept for this. Like, this size of kitchen, this dining room, this area, like, we don't really have one in the can for this. And so I was like, you know what? And I'm really good friends with Patricio at Nick's Taco.
My God! Let me just stop you real quick. Nick's Taco is incredible.
It's fire.
Hey, I didn't know there's any connection there.
I didn't either.
Incredible.
And so I call him and I'm like, "Hey, I got this spot that came across my table. Like, it would make a perfect Nick's Taco. It's in Folsom, next door to McCooney, you know, and I'm like, it would be perfect. It's the right size. It's got the right size kitchen for you. You can do whatever you want." And he's like, "Okay, I'll go look at it." I was like, "Okay, I'll meet you out there. I know the guy, whatever." So we go meet him out there, and they look at it, and he's like, "Well, why don't we do something together?" I was like, and Clay and I kind of looked at each other, and I was like, "Well, let's talk about it. Let's get through it and figure out what we got to do here." And he's like, Patricio was like, "I want to do like a hyper regionalized." I'm from Northeast, he's from Monterey, so Northeast Mexico, not super coastal, right in the kind of middle of the country, shepherd farm, like Sephardic Jews settled Monterey. So they have a huge kind of a Middle Eastern culture to it. Very flour and corn tortilla based. Very whole roasted meats. That's what he grew up eating. And he's like, I want to do a cantina. And I'm like, a cantina? I'm thinking okay, a chips and salsa bar and a neon Corona sign in the window. And he's like, no. And so what I distilled from it was a modern day tavern in the United States. A place like Gramercy Tavern in New York or Wayfair Tavern in San Francisco are these kind of white tuxedo, elevated oysters and oysters and fried chicken and a steak and a martini and that kind of environment, right? Is what a modern day tavern is like in the States. And so he's like, that's what a cantina is like in metropolitan cities in Mexico.
Wow.
So in Monterrey, which is the financial center of Mexico, that's what a cantina is. Mexico City, Guadalajara, the cantinas are nice service-oriented restaurants that don't serve tacos and burritos. They serve plates of food, right?
Yeah.
And so it was okay, well, what if our concept looks more like Canon and the style at which we serve the food, but we go with this hyper regionalized northeastern Mexican cuisine. And he's like, so we kind of land on that, and then again, the process goes, kick the ball over to Clay and say, build, design the space, do the branding, figure all that out. So we work through it together.
Yeah.
And in this particular
collaborative, yeah. I mean, one of the things that kind of came about was that Patricio and his wife Cynthia, they had wanted to do something that was a little more formal, and it was an interest of theirs, and but when you operate it, and they're very entrepreneurial themselves, they got this great kind of chef-driven taqueria that they're doing, and they also have a distillery, and so it's kind of one of those things where it's okay, I need help to bring it forward. Yeah. They probably would not have done it on their own. Who knows, over time, but at this moment, it just wasn't in the cards for them. But because this opportunity presented itself, because you had a team on the other side of you, it's very similar to how Brad and I, started off our partnership, where it's okay, cool, you have to collaborate, you have to build trust, you have to kind of try and figure out what and because it's their heritage that we're working with, we got to be really collaborative in that concept.
And you hope that your strengths in a partnership, right? You hope your strengths are the other person's weaknesses. Agreed. And that you hope that your weaknesses are the other person's strengths. And
or even when you have both are strong at something, accentuating it.
Bolsters it
Brad,
up, right?
Brad and Patricio in the kitchen, the menu idea so far, and I'm just we have it on a piece of paper in the restaurant that's currently under construction.
We lose it.
Wait, why were you laughing?
No, we haven't lost it, but it happens. I'll be hey, where's the menu? It's the only one. It's written on a piece of paper.
Oh, that's why you were laughing.
Well, I'm laughing because I look at it and I'm people are gonna just get their minds blown.
Oh,
can you give us a couple teasers?
And Brad can speak to it a little bit better than I can, or a lot better than I can. But the concept of having this casual but kind of elevated experience that's not the type of Mexican cuisine that we kind of have come to think of as Mexican. In my mind, it's you go to Monterey and the great restaurants are chef driven, right? They're working with not only the vantage point of their heritage and the product that they have available to them, but it's just a chef making great food in a region. And so here, I think that same kind of concept will exist. It's this great chef driven Mexican restaurant that is about the food, and it's not mailed in, and not to say that Mexican food is mailed in, because it can be incredibly delicious, and there's plenty of places I go. Shout out Taco 65. but it's about the seasonality, it's about the heritage, and it's about a vision. I'm just like, and I look at the menu, I'm just like, man, this is gonna be
So it
good.
sounds-
You get blown away by it. I can't
Seriously.
So what it,
But like the botanas,
Yeah, so the idea of how things are eaten, and if you just take the base idea of how you eat at Canon, right? How you eat,
Yep.
right? So you get a couple small things, you get a couple vegetable-driven items, you get a couple big platters, right? And that's usually like our steak or a whole chicken or our lamb pave or whatever, a fish. Like that's essentially the idea, right? Like we were hanging out at Nick's Taco, Patricia and I last week, and he's like, do you want to have a steak? And I was like, yeah, let's have a steak. Sounds great. I love steak, middle of the day. And he goes, how many bones? How many bones? I go, what do you mean how many bones? He goes, how many bone marrows do you want? And I go, well, I think I want one. He's like, well, I want one too. So 2 bones and a ribeye. He tells his chef.
Oh.
And it's for the purpose of like, how are people going to eat this food at Cantina Pedregal, right? And so we're figuring it out, and I'm like, okay, the steak is one thing. We're going to cook this steak. But how we serve it, right? So everything's going to come with tortillas, right? So we're going to have big, this is the low-hanging fruit.
Everything
The
should
cheese
come.
I'll give you is the low-hanging fruit, right?
Yeah.
We will have a big bone-in ribeye steak cooked in a charcoal. It's called a Vesuvio. It's a charcoal-fired oven. And we're going to have this big, huge steak. It'll be sliced. It's going to come with house-made tortillas, flour or corn. And it's going to come with some salsas. And it's going to come with some indigenous chilies mashed with salt. And the way you're going to eat it is you're going to take your tortilla and your slice of dry-aged ribeye and some chiltepin salt and a salsa of your choosing. And you're basically going to make, but it's a table eating, right? So it's not a taco because it's just your vessel for eating this steak. And it's the best way I've ever eaten a steak in my life.
damn.
And then
Can't
you take your bone
wait.
marrow, right? You take your bone marrow, and you put your bone marrow on your tortilla with your steak, and then that's how you're eating your steak, right? That's the idea, right? The taco is something that you might buy on the street to carry the vessel.
This sounds more like bites. You're taking bites of it, and it's just this.
Yeah.
It's just,
And then there'll be vegetable dishes, and then there's going to be we'll have rice, and we'll have different kinds of bean dishes, right? Not just refried beans. The idea that it's hot plate, right? It's not hot plate Mexican food. It's we got different kinds of beans prepped in different ways with different ideas of what they look like, whether it's served with fish or whether it's served with meat or whether it's authentic, right? It's traditional in the manner that it might not look traditional, it might not. We might be using local ingredients to us, but how we're preparing it and how we're thinking about how it's going to be eaten. That's the idea.
Oh my god.
insane.
Insane.
I don't-
And in Folsom, as a community, there's great restaurants in Folsom. A lot of the restaurants are either chains or regional chains, and there's definitely mom and pops there as well. But what I think, and especially a lot of the folks that live in that area, El Dorado Hills and Folsom, that have come to Canon, who have been, I think people are looking for this kind of singular, unique, chef-driven, artisan boutique kind of experience. It's great that there are regional chains there, and they're very successful. But sometimes people are looking for something in their backyard that is special and unique that you can bring your friends to and show off. Mm-hmm. One of the biggest compliments we get at Canon or Franquette or anywhere, like today, we saw some folks at Franquette, and they had friends who were from Santa Cruz and LA, and they brought them. They're like, I just wanted to show them, Franquette. Mm-hmm. I'm like, that's so cool. When people come to Canon, they're like, hey, my friends from New York are here. I wanted to show them this great experience. I'm like, man, that's such a huge compliment. And, to be able to do that for the folks in the Folsom community, it's nice to take people to a place that you feel is really singularly unique because it's I
mean, to that point,
its own space.
and we've talked about this. Dr. Mondo, who I was with actually last night had dinner at his house. He was like, "Yo, man, I got one of my guys from the Giants in. I don't, and there's no knock on Morton's because I've had a couple decent meals at Morton's, but he's like, I don't want to take him to Morton's. I want to take him somewhere special. Where do I go? I'm like, go to Canon, and I think he's been here several times.
Yeah.
As a pivot, and you don't have to give me your answer, guys, but I'm going to put both of you on the spot with Pedregal. Question one is, on the menu, do you guys have a mole on the menu yet or not even thought of?
No, moles are indigenous to the Oaxacan region of Mexico, not the north. So, but the idea of what a mole is, yes.
Are you open to it? That's the question.
Yeah, I think more so. Are you open to it not being called mole?
Hell yeah. But
Wow. How the tables have turned.
But that's what it is, right? We have a section of the menu called cazuelas, right? And the cazuelas are braises. They're meats and vegetables cooked in sauce, but that sauce might not be the Oaxacan mole that we serve with our tater tots, right? It's chocolate based, it's nut based. It has, it will be a different amalgamation of ingredients that will be used to cook these items in. And then, yes, spooned on a tortilla.
I just want to know if you guys are open to meeting with my significant other's family because they have been doing a mole that's a family recipe for over 20 years here locally.
Yeah.
Part of her family's Mexican. It's more of a red-based mole, so it's not your chocolate-based. And I had it recently, and I'm not going to lie to you and tell you it was the best mole I've had in my entire life. So I'm just saying, if you're open to it.
So, question. Why didn't you bring it?
Yeah, right.
Look, you and I are wine buddies. I can't bring it. We can't share everything, but we'll table mark that. I'm gonna bring you some if you guys will eat it, try it. Kendra, if you're listening to this, let's get this going.
The part that I love about this story, the genius that goes into the back of making this, but the fact that two of you guys who see spaces all the time, the initial time that you saw this almost stumped you.
Yeah.
Whoa.
Yeah, I
Come
think,
on, man.
you've got concepts in your back pocket.
Yeah.
And
We have 10. Call it
And-
10.
and-
It's a
and
fair
of
amount of
course.
concepts, right? It's
you could put something there, where you fit a square peg and you force it into a round hole. There's plenty of things that we could have done there, but
But
when
you knew it didn't
comes-
feel
when
right, right?
Well, yeah. When it comes to opening a restaurant is one of the hardest things that anyone can do. It's the most time-consuming, stressful, crazy thing that you take all the things that people think about the industry and how hard it is, but you put it into an opening. That's what you got. So you gotta make sure it's the right thing.
Yep.
And so our initial kind of response to looking at the space was I don't know if this is for us. We have friends who would be perfect for this. And so it was really us thinking about what is the best for this location that then led us to saying, we almost looked at each other at the same time. We were
Yeah.
what would kill it here is Patricio.
That's
That's so.
That's so great,
And the beautiful
man.
part of the story that I didn't even know is that it was tied to Nick's Taco. I could easily make the argument. I'm not in Roseville that often, but they're the best. They're the best taco in the entire.
Food and Wine Magazine called it the best tacos in Northern California.
I would.
That's
yes.
that's pretty good praise.
Oh my!
Yes.
But and it's one of the things that makes it really special is that artisanal approach, really challenging people's idea of what because I'm sure there's and we they came to dinner here a couple weeks ago and we were sitting together and just chatting. And he was showing me some reviews of on Yelp or whatever. Sometimes people just are looking for what they think Mexican food is.
Yeah.
He's like, I'm Mexican.
Yeah.
I'm making Mexican food. This is what it is.
Well, the idea that you can get a $3 taco over here,
Yeah.
it is what it is, right? And you can get, and then his tacos are $7,
Yeah.
right?
This is where I'm going to get in trouble.
Like that's the difference. But like the idea that you can't respect the idea that this is better
Right.
than this.
Yeah.
Not that they're both the same, right?
And that's fine. You know,
Like,
that's
a Mercedes Benz is not a Honda
Yeah.
Accord.
And that's
right?
just the way the world works. When you're in the restaurant business, you can't have thin skin. You know, you got to know that there's going to be
I
some
don't
people who
even-
get
I
it
don't
and some
read that
people
shit
who
anymore.
don't. And, you know, and that's fine. You know, you have to have conviction about what you're doing, and you know that what you're doing is great. And not everyone's going to be on board, but thankfully, 90% of the people are. You know,
you
and
guys
so-
are going to be slammed. So
Agreed.
when is the projected date of you guys thinking
May
that
1st.
Yeah, late spring.
Oh wow,
this isn't going to be incredible?
I'm
man.
excited about that answer.
We're gonna be there when it opens. We
No
cannot freaking wait. And hopefully, a lot of people that are hearing this podcast and seeing these reels are going to get really excited too.
Well, the
man.
beverage component, we didn't even get to that.
Oh boy.
Okay, so
Dude's
I'm
got a distillery.
so tell, are we gonna have some
We
mezcal
are
there?
gonna go there.
So we'll expand. I mean, so Patricio has a distillery, the Nick's Taco Distillery. Now, distilling agave, we were talking a little bit on the break a little bit about it, is not easy, right? So he's not doing that yet because that's not like grain, beer, distillation, wine, grapes, distillation. You know, it's like digging out a root out of the ground and then like cooking it and grinding it with a burro, right? Like it's a thing. So he's not making
Burros
any
are hard to come by these days.
any agave spirits right now. So he's doing some vodkas and gin. He's making rum, triple sec, or like a orange liqueur, stuff like that. That you know we're going to incorporate an incredible amount of his high quality spirits into that cocktail program, but then expand it into an incredible mezcal and tequila list.
Come
right?
on.
And the craft cocktails. I'm like we're all kind of talking about it still, but like. I'm adamant about not calling things margaritas, right? It's like, this is this cocktail. This is this cocktail. Does it have tequila or mezcal in it? Sure.
Yeah.
Does it have a citrus spirit in it? Sure, whatever. But like they're, you know, like the classic margarita might be on the menu, but maybe we don't call it that, you know, so that we get people to try all these different cool cocktails. We got a bar about the same size as Canon's, a 25-foot bar, big, you know, spirit program. It's Mexican food, so inherently is probably not geared towards wine, not from a cultural standpoint, but the idea that the food's going to be spicy.
Yeah.
And spicy food doesn't tend to go very well with wine.
Yeah.
Right. But there's incredible wines down in Baja. And you know, we'll have some incredible wines that are from Napa Valley and Sierra Foothills.
And the idea
all
is
that
like,
stuff.
you know, it's like, for it to be this vibrant cantina focused experience, you know, it's like, you know, the bar program has to be really strong and fun and interesting. And, you know, just similar to kind of the way we approach things at Canon, you know, like the wine list and the cocktail program are just as fun and adventurous as the menu. And so that's the idea, you know, here as well, where it's like, it's not going to be an afterthought. You know, even if the wine program is not robust, it's not going to be an afterthought. The cocktail program, beverage program, it's going to be just as fun and interesting and cool as
you guys drink Fernet?
Hell yeah.
You ever had Fernet on nitro?
Never, but that
New
sounds
Wills
incredible.
on May 1st.
Come on.
That's a thing.
That's
Like on like Guinness, right? Like the
Yeah.
foamy hit, right? Fernet on nitro.
we gotta hang out. I gotta hang out with Brad.
Way.
Hey, you know,
He sounds like he's built different.
he's built different.
You know, one of my favorite cocktails is of my life, as we're talking about mezcal now, is have you had a Naked and Famous?
Yeah.
Those things are so
So good.
so good. I'm a sucker for chartreuse. Chartreuse is just like incredible. So it's mezcal chartreuse. This is an incredible cocktail,
Love every
man.
bit of this.
I am hungry right now. I know we're coming back. I'm coming back tonight to have dinner at Canon. But this just sounds fun, and like you guys are pushing limits.
I'm so excited about that. And before we get into the wrapping up stuff, in the line with the Legacy Lounge, we want to hear. Let's put it 10 years from now. What does it look like between you guys? I want to see what you've already set the the standard. You guys got a legacy that's going to last a long time. But what does 10 years from now look
Yeah,
like for
I
you
mean,
guys?
without revealing, too much, because, we do think about it.
Of course.
I think,
You're an entrepreneur, of
hope,
course.
Our hope is that, one of these concepts in Canon is not something that we're interested in, like, seeing more of.
Mm-hmm.
But maybe Cantina Pedregal could be in multiple locations. It could,
Franquette,
it could be
whatever.
Franquette.
go.
So that's an interest of ours, right? It's
Yeah.
like we've done this one-off well. Can there be two of those things? So that's a curiosity of ours. And then, I hope that, one day our expertise, is something that is valuable to other folks, whether it's developers or we're developing ourselves. We definitely are entrepreneurial. And I think right now our focus is on just really mastering what we're doing at the moment and then seeing how that might be valuable down the road.
And
So it's on our mind.
We're both not old, right? But we start talking about 10 years. We start talking about signing leases at new places or buying property or
If
whatever.
I'm signing a 10-year at
Right,
age
like
56,
you got to look at that, right?
It's
So
gonna
like I'm
be-
41, he's 46, right? Like 10 years from now, when this Cantina Pedregal lease is wrapping up, like I'm 51, he's 56.
75.
And so the idea that our body and then this business isn't easy on your body, right? Like we're on our feet, we're working, we're doing a lot. So the idea of elevating the people that work for us
Yeah.
and work with us
Mhm.
to be able to carry this for us, like is something that
Well, and
that
also
we're
just
keen
like
on
there's
doing.
there's an idea of that appeals to us of passing the torch too, and right now we're holding it, and others have passed it to us, and that's something that we're excited about as well, and why we talked earlier about like wanting success for the people who work with us. There are some people who, this is what they want to do, and they want to learn, and they want to grow, and they want to build their own business, and I want to be there to help them do that. What involvement we have in it is up to that situation. But at some point, to be the ones to say like, hey, we want to support the next generation of entrepreneurs in our hospitality industry. Like
And
we're
in this business,
totally
the
open to
window's
that.
small.
Yeah.
Right? The window's small of relevancy. You have to be young enough and cool enough and creative enough to be catching a trend, to be good at this for as long as that goes on for.
Wow.
And the people that are behind us, the young people, don't have what we have in the experience and the business acumen and the entrepreneurship and all that. So we get them to our point, we got to pass that torch to them then. So that window for us is small, right? So the idea that we are going forward and want to shore up our businesses and our opportunities and pass the torch on to other people, like that's it. But
That's legacy.
but
It
but
is.
56 years old is still not retirement age.
Yeah.
Especially in this business. So we got to figure out what's next. What is
Yeah,
next, right? And
we'll be doing something, but it's unlikely that it'll look exactly like what we're doing.
Well, I
here.
think what we need to do, I'm going to put it in here just because we talk about music. Hopefully, Sacramento will have some new venue at some point. I just want to say that because I hate actually seeing shows at Ace of Spades. So maybe it'll be a venue, maybe it'll be something spectacular. But I just want to say, man, I am super
I'm retired
I'm-
from that.
I
part
do
of
send him. I do send him like cool like jazz lounges and stuff. I'm like, what about this? And he's like, dude, that's a fucking 3 a.m. gig.
Oh,
Like
man.
that's
tired.
Nope.
that's
I'm
a
tired.
3 a.m. gig. That's booking talent. That's managing. It's everything we do plus all that, right? And he's like,
Good
that's
point.
A young
Don't
man's
want
gig.
those
That's a
props.
young
I
man's
agree.
But
gig.
hey,
But
if
we
someone
might
else
own,
wants
we might
to
own
do
a
it, that's
building.
fantastic.
If
I'll
someone
go.
else wants to
I'll
put
be
down
there.
one of our buildings, then that's cool for us.
There it is.
Yeah.
Well, real estate's finally starting to pick up. Renee, I was telling Renee, I received 4 new clients this week. It's been kind of slow the last year and a half.
Yeah.
The market kind of has changed, but we're expecting that the market's going to pick up big time this year. We're excited about that. And with that being said, I don't need an answer from you, Brad, or you, Clay, but if I can pick up a shift at Pedregal, I'm going to promise you something.
It just won't be in the back of
will.
house.
It
Drink
won't
all
be.
the mezcal?
It won't be back. It won't be back of house. My personality.
You know your genius zone? Just work the floor, baby.
That's what I'm
I
trying
don't
to
need
say.
you- I don't need you serving. I don't need you bartending. I don't need you bussing. Just like go make people happy.
Director of Good Times.
All right, so
Oh,
just
man.
think about it.
Director of
I like
vibes.
this.
If somebody orders a margarita, just slap them.
His card-
We don't do
card-
You go like
margaritas.
this. We
His
have
card
several,
just
we have
says built
several drinks
different.
that might fit that description. What are you into?
We're gonna end on this. I'm excited to do this. We're gonna have to space it out. I'm really excited because we've asked this question to some of our guests.
We can limit it to 3, right? Like,
Well, I want to do 5.
okay,
It's gonna be
from these guys, you're
5
right.
each.
You're right.
5
I
each.
agree.
Because
with you
we asked. It's funny. We shout out to Ray Young, who's an absolute legend in Oakland. Played basketball with Rene. Played at UCLA. And of course, we asked him, what are your 5 favorite places to eat? He's like, I do pre-mades. I'm like, okay, that did not hit. Okay.
But this one will
So
work.
we're gonna space it out. I'm gonna say, Clay. We'll start with you, Clay.
Sure.
Your top 5 restaurants in the world. So you've ever been, but I want 2 of the 3 to be local Sacramento.
Sure. We'll probably have some of the same, maybe. Like anytime someone asks me like where they should go and like a recommendation, I almost always say Benchiaki. They're good friends. Their food is phenomenal.
Is your list going top to bottom or bottom to top?
No order.
No,
yeah,
no
thank you.
order. Yeah.
No
so
order.
don't
Good question.
don't hold them to it. Good job. Good
So
job.
that's just like one of my favorite local like haunts to send people to.
And stay there for 3 hours. Like
Yeah,
it's-
they're the best, and the food is so good. I also love State Bird Provisions.
Went there for the first time, and I'm telling you, and it's the. I'm sorry to cut you off, but I'm gonna say it real quick. Clay texts me, and he's like, "How many pancakes did you eat?" I'm like, "Bro, how did you know this? We ate everything, and the best thing on the menu were those pancakes."
Let's see here. Another local place that's my favorite. I'm gonna shout out to my kids, Hudson and Bo. Our favorite pizza, and it's a specific location, is Sellen's.
yes.
However,
Yes.
it's on H Street.
Oh yeah. Uh-huh.
No
That's the one.
problem with Broadway. It's
Yeah.
totally fine. Or any other location that they're at. The H Street oven is just cooking things different.
It's
Oh,
seasoned.
that's great.
It's just seasoned. It's just seasoned.
No, but all jokes aside, so we had Clay over for dinner with some friends over, and Clay like stood up on my dining table. He's like, specifically the one on H. but it makes sense. I mean, that oven it's
That's
seasoned.
great.
It's been
I
around for
love
over
it.
20 years.
One of the best meals I've ever had, and I could go further outside, but like Gary Danko.
Oh my God, Gary Danko's.
So I had a friend who used to
incredible.
work there back in the day, and so it's just a classic, incredible meal. And I miss that sometimes. We don't get out, unfortunately, that much. Like when we go to Cap to Cap in DC last couple of years, we definitely go to some really great
We
restaurants.
go hard.
It's gonna be fun.
And I mean, there's
We're-
like Bar Sparrow was
Bar Sparrow was fire.
That's
Dude, your
incredible.
favorite place, which one is it? Astoria? Which one is it? I forget
I
what
can't
we
remember. I
mixed
get
up.
them mixed
D-
up.
I get
D-
some
is
mixed
the
up.
food scene in DC
Oh,
is
it's
next
great.
level.
Fire,
Phenomenal.
dude.
Because there's such a diversity there.
Well, there's money. That's the other thing. It's like,
There's a lot of people
I
there
had-
to spend money.
I'll get on my soapbox for a second about the food scene in Sacramento. We have incredible restaurants here, but we don't have a scene,
Yeah.
right? We're busy from 6 to 8
Yeah.
because it's just sleepy, right? And like we have the government and we have all the things, but like the thing about DC is you got all the lobbyists, you got all the politicians, you got all the other business, you got all that stuff. So you have a scene that is fire from like 11 a.m. to 2 a.m. or 4 a.m. Right? And that affords you a different kind of scene, right? More opportunity, more restaurants, more creative people, more money, more people making a living off of doing this. Like there's a density to be had in places like that. And DC is a little bit of an outlier because there is so much money and so much of that concentrated in an area that in a city that is far smaller than New York, or Chicago, or LA, or San Francisco, right?
Yeah.
So I'll go. I don't know if it's 2 or 3, but I'll just go local. So my wife and I, when we have like a real special occasion, we go to Laura.
Yeah.
Just seafood, Italian, just
They kill it.
phenomenal.
They do.
Meal every time. Crew. I mean, first of all, shout out Billy, James Beard
Semifinalist.
Award semifinalist.
Wow.
Just I've never. I mean, and I can crush some sushi.
Yeah.
So it's like, but it's not just sushi, right? You know, it's like it's a beautiful restaurant, Japanese food, and like just
Phenomenal.
incredible every time. And then lastly, Taco 65, baby.
There, you brought it
I've
back.
never heard
He's on the Taco 65 so hard.
Down
lately.
it. So I went to.
I like Cerveceria. It's like
That place is great. I mean, there's so many like urban roots, and I just there's so many great restaurants that I can go on and on and on about. But like,
we asked you to name
I was
five.
at
Like 47 restaurants later.
He's like,
this
well,
is, I think I did
I'm gonna
5, or
give-
maybe I did 6. But I went to Maker's Mart, which is this great like holiday maker event that is at the Scottish Rite Temple. My friends who own, gosh, why am I forgetting the name of their?
Their names or their restaurant?
No, the they own the plant shop on 21st and Broadway.
Propagate? No.
Oh, I know what you're talking about.
Public Land.
Public
Sorry.
Land, yeah.
I don't know why I spaced. Anyhow,
Cool, hip, like Filipino chick, or I'm tripping.
so Mel was eating a burrito. So Mel is one of the owners, and like I was like, "This looks incredible. Where did you get it?" And they're like, "I'm gonna let you in on a secret. It's a place called Taco 65 on Broadway and 65th. Place is fire." I went there. I've been almost like making people go. I'm like, "You need to go there and tell me about it."
He'll like leave.
And I told
He'll just leave and go. And not
I
tell
told
him, like, oh, where
I
you going?
told
Oh,
our
I'm
friend
just going
Conti
to get some
about
meat.
it, and I was like, "Dude, Taco Seas." And so he finally calls me. He's like, "You need to call me right now." I was like, "Oh, what's going on?" He's like, "I win." I was like, I knew it. I knew what the urgency of this message was.
You've never told me
Chris.
about this.
After this,
Taco
65.
Let's go.
All right, Brad,
All right.
you're up.
Took the time.
Ooh.
And if there's some overlaps with the locals, you
No,
know,
there's no
fine.
overlaps. I don't think. I mean, Bencho's the best. I love it. I love it there so
So is
much.
Crew. Bencho and Crew are just...
So I will say that I won't put Crew on my list. Not for and I know Billy hates this, so I won't. But I'm gonna say it. 2 of my most memorable meals ever were at Old Crew, and Billy himself made them, and he's cooking at New Crew and whatever. Like, I love New Crew. I love everything that they do over there. It's amazing. It's probably one of the, if not the best restaurant in Sacramento.
So to give reference point, Old Crew is about the size of this room that we're in.
oh wow,
Yeah.
And-
That's where Jungle Bird is.
And
Oh,
yeah,
wow.
where Jungle Bird is. Yeah, and so
yeah,
I was leaving when I got the job in Cleveland. I was leaving town, and we went in there for dinner, just on like a random dinner, and he just fucked us up. Like, it was so
Ruined
good.
you for
It
life.
was so good. And then I had my rehearsal dinner there,
oh wow,
and he did the same thing. And so it was very personal, right? I guess that's the point. It was a personal experience. Those were 2 of my most memorable meals in my entire life.
Wow.
You know, it's hard, I think, for me with like best meals, favorite restaurants, because I've traveled a lot,
Yep.
right? But they're one-offs, right? I've eaten this place one time. I've eaten this place one time, had a really exceptional meal. Where then I go to like Sacramento restaurants, and I go there all the time because I love it so much. And so when we talk about it, like there's a restaurant in DC that I've been to twice now called Albee. That is
God.
You told me about this.
hands down
So good.
one of the best restaurants I've ever been to. Like it's Middle Eastern cuisine. It's
Just bonkers.
so good. It's so like I will be going there again in April. Like it's incredible. So that let's see where else. I mean, I'm a big State Bird guy. I love it there.
Have you been to Progress?
Been to Progress.
Progress is great.
Progress.
It's kind of just the same, right? It's the same. It feels like it's the same, but 2 different ways of eating the same food, right? Like
A little bit.
A little bit.
The duck is...
The duck
makes it different.
The duck is different. Yeah. An anchovy bar. Their other restaurant.
That place, their menu is so killer.
Yeah,
we
it's
went, we
so
walked in there
good.
and it was like dead. I'm like, this is ridiculous.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Great restaurant.
So I'm a big fan. Now, when we get into the local, you know, I gotta love.
Pancake Circus.
No, it's not Pancake Circus. Oh, there's another restaurant. So it's not open anymore. There's a restaurant in Portland for brunch called Tasty and Sons that I like when we were looking at Canon, when we wrote the brunch menu at Canon to begin with, I was like, I want to do something like tasty.
Food scene in Portland's ridiculous, by the way.
Oh, it's Portland's having a hard time right now, but back like 5-6 years ago, like Portland was like it. Like it was the top. And then but here locally, so I got a love relationship with Jim Boy's. Like people ask me in interviews, they go, "What's your death row?
Yes.
What's your death row?" It's as many Jim Boy's tacos, extra crispy ground beef, extra crispy tacos as you can give me.
I like the bean and cheese burritos there.
Yeah. So it's my
I remember
kid.
Just like my
you
other
know,
kids.
Brad doesn't get like, you know, celebrity impressed by much. I've never seen it happen except the one time Jim Boy's retweeted him for saying something about Jim Boy's on social media.
Yeah, someone asked me what my death row meal was, and Jim Boy's retweeted it. And I was like,
And
oh.
he was.
that's so
That was it.
Dude was on cloud 9 for.
But it's happened a
days.
couple. That we've since had like a little social
they've got a
media
rapport.
like rapport.
Yeah.
And I don't know who runs the social over Jim Boy's, but shout out.
That's great.
I feel like that's very like Anthony Bourdain when he like talks about this like hot dog. It was like I forget the name of it,
Yeah.
but this really good. Oh, Gray Papayas. is
Yeah,
it?
Gray Papayas, yeah.
And he would go there for like just shitty hot dogs.
They're closing. Oh, I know. Just recently, they found a new location, and now they're just starting. They're closing now.
Oh, wow.
Hey man, if you're from Sacramento, you love you some Jim Boys. Jim
have
Boys
to.
Yeah.
is incredible. Here's the constant argument that I have with Kendra, and when I ask her this question, she answers it quickly. That's how sure she is with her answer. Taco Bell or Jim Boys?
Jim Boy's.
Jim Boy's.
I haven't eaten Taco Bell since the
Oh
8th grade.
boy!
So I gotta put it behind. I had Jim Boy's right before practice at Sac State, and they ran us to death, and I puked. So it messed me up. So it's a
Yeah.
different,
Now
story.
listen, it
was a different story, man.
Listen, I'm not saying that story didn't happen. That's bullshit. I'm gonna call you
That's a
out.
bullshit answer.
No,
That's
yeah.
like the people who
Hey.
be like, "Oh, I drank gin in college and
Yeah.
I threw up."
You-
Like, no,
You
no,
gotta,
this is why
you
it's
gotta be
bullshit.
built different.
Yeah,
You know,
this is why it's
unfortunately,
bullshit. This is why it's bullshit.
Renee.
Because
Listen, it was
because
gin and
Jim
Jim
Boy's.
Boy's tacos
Hey.
at the same
and,
time.
and bong rips. This motherfucker said that because you know that Taco Bell just has more on their menu, and your kids probably frequent with the
No,
Taco
I'm
Bell.
not even. I don't care about Taco
All
Bell.
right.
That's not
You
it.
said
I'm
it,
just
yeah,
saying it was one of those
right.
traumatizing
The Jim
things.
Boy's
You know what I'm saying?
traumatized,
That's all
Yeah,
I'm saying.
I haven't eaten Jim
Hey.
Boy's. That's what I told somebody one day. They go.
Hey, you know what? They need a second chance.
I'm in.
If they're listening
in.
right now, sponsorship opportunity.
I'm
let's
in.
let's make
Right.
this
I'm
happen.
Let's
in.
do it.
So I tell people, they go, what do you get? What's your order at Taco Bell? Because people ask that question, and I'm like, I haven't been to Taco Bell since I was 11 years old. And they're like, are you serious? I'm like, yeah, no, I'm serious. Why would you go to Taco Bell when you could go to Jim Boy's? Like, if you're just making the choice, like, for me, it's not a hard choice.
Yeah.
I'm not going.
Well, there is
love
something on the menu at Taco Bell that I will stand for, and that's called a Mexican pizza. But I mean, other than that, I
They,
feel
they
like
take it away from you every once in a
they.
while.
Yeah, they do.
Well, now I have to have this conversation with our Mexican food making business partner, and he doesn't appreciate any of it. He's
Brad,
like,
I guarantee it. Oh, that's great.
Brad, I'll ask you this, and I'll ask Clay, then we'll wrap it up. If you can have dinner with one person, dead or alive, who would it be? Wasn't expecting
I
that.
feel like most chefs will answer this way, but I would have dinner with Julia Child.
Oh shit! Okay.
A
I love
lot of
that.
chefs would answer it that way.
I love it. I love it.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like my answer is probably pretty basic too for people in the industry. But like, I mean, imagine getting on a moped with Bourdain and like
God.
in Thailand or something,
Yeah.
you know, and like
Just letting it rip.
letting him take you wherever the hell for a 3-day bender of food and cold beer.
Amazing.
Like that's
This is
you
very,
know
very
that
politically
doesn't
correct
get
of
any
you.
better than that.
That's badass.
Anthony Bourdain's the man. I read his book. I think he's written several books.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was fascinated. I mean, it was like a real. I can't even believe the life that man lived. I mean,
Which one? Like Restaurant Confidential?
Yes.
The yellow one?
yeah. I mean, it was just like a lot, and it was one of the spots that he cut his teeth in was in P-Town. And I visited P-Town. It's a fun, crazy, unique, small little place. But I mean, the stories in that book were absolutely fascinating.
It's funny, that book, shaped a lot of cooks my age, right? Like, whatever. But the Bear, the show, the
That's-
Bear,
Yes.
is doing the same thing
Yes.
Yeah.
for new cooks. That show's very realistic. It's very the way that they tell the stories and the tone at which it's told is very similar to our day to day. Like my wife won't watch it. And people ask me, "Have you seen the Bear? Have you seen the Bear?" I go,
Stresses
"No."
her out.
I go, "Yes, but I live the Bear.
Yeah.
I live it, right? Especially in like opening restaurants and stuff." So, but the way that that's shaping is the same way that Restaurant Confidential shaped how I moved through my early 20s in this business.
Crazy. Guys, we appreciate you. This has been this.
You guys have hit a home run multiple times and can't wait for the third one. But thank you for being here today. We had so much fun. Seriously.
Thanks, guys.
Cheers.
Thank you. Appreciate it.